Okay, first we're going to start with a two-man bracket. Two-man bracket is the simplest bracket that you can have. And when you just have two people in a bracket, it's something called the best of three, which means that they're going to compete against each other a minimum of 2 times and possibly a third time. If the same person wins the first 2 matches, they will be declared the winner. But if one person wins, then the other person wins, they will go on to a third match. So here I'm going to draw it out for you so it makes way more sense. Normally you would put like competitors' names right here on the line. Just to make everything simpler, I'm going to use numbers to represent competitors. So for competitor number 1, I'm just going to put number 1 right here. I'll move my hand so you can see it. Number 1. And then for competitor number 2, which since there's only 2 competitors, this is going to be competitor number 2. And right here, they're going to go at it for another round. Number 1 and number 2. Okay. So the first match, number 2 wins. For the second match, competitor number 1 wins. So now there's a tie. Number 2 won one match, number 1 won the other match. So to break the tie, we have to go to the third match. And for the third match, say number 2 wins. So number 2 is the champion. And second place, of course, would be number 1. And going back really quick to reiterate, number 2 wins the first match. Had number 2 won the second match, we would have never gone to a third match since it's best out of 3. And that concludes a 2-man bracket. Alright, for lesson number 2 in bracketology, we're going to be doing a 3-man round robin. And what a 3-man round robin is for a 3-man bracket. And what that means is that every person goes up against every other person in that bracket. So to paint a clearer picture, I'm going to draw it right up here. So say we have 3 people, and I'm just going to use numbers like I did last time to represent people instead of painstakingly writing out every single name. So we have 3 competitors. Competitor number 1 is going to be named number 1. Competitor number 2 is going to be number 2. And number 3 is going to be 3. So competitor number 2, let me slide this up so you can see it. Competitor number 2 is going to go up against 1 and 3. And then competitor 1 is to go up against 3. So if you see this right here, everyone gets 2 matches. 2 goes up against 1 and 3. 3 goes up against 2 and 1. And 1 goes up against 2 and 3. And now I'm going to draw this right here on these brackets. I'm going to slide this down a little bit so you can see what it's going to look like on the brackets. So we have number 1. It's going to go up against number 2. And then we have number 2. It's going to go up against number 3. And then number 1 is going to go up against number 3. And say for this first match right here, say number 1 wins. And then the second match, number 2 and 3, they go up against each other. Number 2 wins. And then for the last match, 1 and 3 goes up against each other, and number 1 wins. So to find out who the first, second, and third place are, you just tally up the wins. The fighter with the most wins is number 1, so he's going to be the champion. And then number 2 has 1 win, so he has the second most amount of wins, so he's going to be second place. And since number 3, just process of elimination, has to be third place. And that concludes 3-man round robin brackets. And lesson number 3 in bracketology. Now we're up to a 4-man bracket. A 4-man bracket's really easy to do because it's what's called a perfect bracket. It's narrowed down to 1 very easily. And you know that because you just have the numbers until you get to 1. You go from 4 to 2 to 1. And you'll see when we do larger brackets that doesn't work out nearly as smooth as this 4-man bracket that we're going to do right now. So I'm going to start drawing it. So right over here on the board, I'm going to use numbers to represent competitors like I had in my previous videos. So for the first competitor, I'm going to name him number 1. And number 2. And we have competitor number 3 and number 4. And just to reiterate, these would be names in a real bracket. This could be like John and Evan versus Mike and Kyle, or whatever the case might be. So you got 4 people. And say for the first match, number 2 is my winner. Number 2 wins the first match. And then we have number 3 and 4. Sorry, I forgot to put in the number 2. And now we have number 3 and 4. Number 3 wins this match right here. And what we have here, this is a double elimination bracket. In a double elimination bracket, you're going to have, there's 2 different brackets here. There's this one down here, and then there's this big one up here. What this is called a championship bracket. A championship bracket is filled with all the people that have not lost a match yet. If you have lost a match before the finals, you're going to end up in what's the consolation bracket down here. So right now we're going to have 2 people that we have to drop down to the consolation bracket. Since it's a 4-man bracket, you're going to see this is going to go by very smoothly and easily. So number 1 lost the first. He lost against number 2 in the first round. So I'm going to drop down number 1 into the consolation bracket. And now we have number 3 and 4. And since 3 won, 4 lost, I got to drop down number 4 into the consolation bracket. So now we're at the finals. We have number 2 and number 3. They're going to battle for the championship for first place. And then we have number 1 and number 4. They're going to battle for 3rd place, and the loser, of course, will be 4th place. So out of 2 and 3, let's just say number 2 wins. Number 2 beats out 3. And we have number 1 and number 4. Say number 1 beats out 4. And just to clarify right here, like for example, we had number 2 beat out 3. 3 is not going to drop down into any sort of consolation bracket, because if you make it to the finals and you're going for 1st and 2nd, and you lose the championship, you will not be dropped down into the consolations. You just end up with 2nd place because the bracket is completed at that point. So what it's going to look like is the brackets are complete. So for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place, in 1st place we're going to have number 2, competitor number 2 won 1st place. He's right over there. And for 2nd place, the person that number 2, the person that lost in the finals, which would be number 3 right there. Number 3 is going to be in 2nd place. And then 3rd place, you can even see it's labeled. I don't know if you could read that on the actual video, but right there it says 3rd place. And 3rd place is competitor number 4. And of course, 4th place, if you are aware of 4th place, would be competitor number 1. And I'm going to move the paper over so you kind of just get a feel for what everything looks like. And that is how you do a 4-man double elimination bracket. Alright, now we're up to lesson 4 in bracketology. And we're going to be doing a 5-man bracket. And you'll notice 5-man brackets are way, way tougher than 4-man brackets, because 5-man bracket is an odd number bracket, and in odd number brackets you're going to actually have to do some modifications to what's on the standard bracket. And the reason for that is because when you have even brackets like 4, all the matches are paired up evenly. It goes from 4 to 2 to 1. When you have 5, you can't half. There's no cutting 5 and half evenly. You end up with decimals. So in order to pair everyone up evenly, you end up with what is called a bye. And just going back to the 4-man bracket, I'll put this over here on the screen. I want to explain what's going to happen when we add an additional person and why this is going to be so messy. So right here we have 4 people, and we start pairing them up. We can pair 4 people into 2 groups of 2. We have competitor 1 and 2, and we have competitor 3 and 4. But if I were to add a 5th person right here, they would have no one to go up against first round. So what do we do? What's the solution to that? What we do is it's called a bye. And a bye is when you just forward that competitor on to the next round. So going over here, this is actually an 8-man bracket. but we use the 8-man bracket to draw in a 5-man bracket. And of course, there's going to be quite a few empty spaces since there's only 5 competitors. So I'm going to start drawing it out right here. So right here we're going to have, I'm going to start numbering everything off. We have competitor number 1, we have number 2, number 3, we have number 4, and we have number 5, just like that. And you'll notice that right here, 5, there's no one right here on this line. There's no one for 5 to go up against. So what's going to happen is 5 is going to get a bye. And there is a modification of the bracket that's going to be needed in order to complete this bracket. And I'm just going to draw it right here just like this. 5 is going to get a bye. And what's going to happen is 5 is going to go up against the winner of competitor number 3 and competitor number 4. So if we were to start this bracket right here, starting with the first match right here, number 1 and 2, say number 2 wins. Number 2 wins. And then for the second match, number 3 wins. And number 5 got a bye. So number 5 is going to be right here. So we have 3 and 5. They're going to have to compete, and then we have number 2 is going to go up against the winner of 3 and 5. But before we do that, we can't ignore the consolation bracket down here. So anyone who lost first round has to be dropped down to the consolation bracket. And right here, this is an 8-man consolation bracket. So there's a lot of lines here that won't be used. For example, everything right here that I circled, all those lines are not going to be used when you only have 5 people. So dropping everyone who lost first round down into a consolation. We have number 1 and number 2. Let me slide this down so you can see it. Number 1 and number 2. Number 2 won. So number 1 lost. So I'm up at number 1 right here. And then we have number 3 and 4. 3 won and 4 lost. So number 4 is going to go right there. And then moving back up to the championship rounds, we have 3 and 5. And let's say number 3 wins. So number 3 is going to go right here. And number 2 is going to get a bye to the finals. So we have number 2 and number 3 right here. And then we have number 5 just lost. So number 5 has to drop down to the consolations since he lost before the finals. Excuse me. So right here, I'm going to drop down number 5 to right here. And number 5 is going to go up against the winner of 1 and 4. So say number 1 wins. Right here. And now we're at all the finals matches. Right here, this is called the championship finals. And this is called the consolation finals down here. The winner of the consolation finals will win 3rd place, while the winner of the championship finals will be the champion of the entire division, will win 1st place. So number 2 and number 3, out of them 2, say number 2 wins. And right here, out of number 1 and number 5, let's say number 5 pulls off the victory. So for 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place, we're going to have number 2 as our winner. We're going to have the runner-up is going to be the person that lost in the finals, which would be number 3. And for 3rd place, we're going to have the winner of the consolation finals, which is going to be number 5. And it's very important that you do something called verify your consolation bracket. And what that means is you want to make sure that everyone is dropped down into the consolation bracket that should be there. So the way you do that is you look at the total number of competitors, which in this case is 5, and you know 2 people are going to be in the finals. So we have number 2 and number 3. These are in the finals. So everyone that did make it to the finals should be in a consolation bracket. So that would be number 1, 4, and 5. And as you see down here, we have number 1, 4, and 5 in the consolation, so that's how we know we did it correctly. And that concludes a 5-man double elimination bracket. Lesson number 5 in bracketology. Now we're up to a 6-man bracket. 6-man bracket is going to be a little bit easier than a 5-man bracket because there's not going to be any first round buys because 6 is an even number. And with 6, you could group up 6 competitors very nicely and evenly into 3 groups of 2. But when you get to the second round, you're not going to be able to do that because after you have 3 groups of 2 and then those matches are competed, you're going to narrow it down to 3 people. And when you have 3 people, you can't have 2 groups of 2. You're going to have 1 group of 2, and then you're going to have 1 person all by themselves, and then that person will get a bye. And I'm going to show you what it's going to look like over here on the screen, and you'll have a much more clear idea of what's going on. So first you'll notice that there's a championship bracket up here, and there's a consolation bracket down here. And since you'll notice that this isn't actually a 6-man bracket, this is an 8-man bracket. And the reason I'm using an 8-man bracket here today is because a 6-man bracket doesn't actually exist, so we have to use an 8-man bracket. But since there's more lines here than we need, I'm going to cross them out. And there's the ones that I'll be able to cross out first over here on the consolation. I'm not going to need any of these, so I'm just going to cross all these out. And actually, these 2 right down here, I'm not going to use this bracket either. Because you'll notice that if I have 6 people, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7 and 8 are not going to be used. And for the consolation, there's only going to be 4 people in the consolation at the end. And we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So everything adds up. And it'll make more sense as I fill everything in and go along. So we have 6 people. We're going to number them all off. We have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, and number 6. And keep in mind, these numbers actually represent people in a real bracket. You might have, Mike and John, and Kevin and Jack, or whatever the case might be. All right, so first round, we have number 1 goes up against number 2. Number 2 wins. And I'm just arbitrarily filling these in. I could have number 1 win as well. It wouldn't really change anything. This is just so you understand the mechanics of how the brackets work. Number 3 and 4, number 3 wins. 5 and 6, number 5 wins. All right, so we went from 6 people, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3 of them won, 3 of them lost. So we're down to 3 people in the championship bracket. We have 3 people remaining that have not lost yet. What do we do with the other 3 people? Well, the other 3 people are going to be dropped down into the consolation bracket. So we have number 1, since number 1 lost to number 2. Number 1 is in the consolation bracket. Number 4 lost as well, number 4. And number 6 lost to number 5. We have number 6. Coming back up here to the championship bracket right here, like I said, the second round, we're going to need a bye for the person that doesn't have a match. So number 2 and number 3, they're paired together nicely. What about number 5? Number 5 doesn't have anyone to go up against. So number 5 gets a bye. And when you get a bye, what's happening is you're just getting forwarded on to the next round. So number 5, in this case, in this bracket right here, is actually going to get a bye to the finals. Doesn't necessarily mean he'll win, but he'll be in a position where he gets to compete for first and second because he got a bye second round. So number 5 goes right there. And then we have number 2 and number 3. Say number 2 wins. Number 2 wins right here. But what about number 3? Number 3 lost. So number 3 has to be dropped down to the consolation bracket. So number 3 can go right there where that empty line is, right next to number 6. And from here, it's very easy. You just finish filling in the brackets. Very standard procedure, just because there's no more modifications or buys that will be present in the brackets from here on out once you get to this point. So you have number 2 and number 5. Doesn't really matter whoever you want to win. Say we have number 5 wins. Number 5 wins. And then right here we have 4 matches. I mean, not 4 matches. We have 4 competitors. And there's going to be 3 matches total. So we have this match right here in the constellations. We have 1 and 4. And say number 1 wins. And then we have 6 and 3. Number 6 wins. And then we have the third match, number 1, number 6. Number 6 wins. So now for first, second, and third place. First place, pretty easy. The person who hasn't lost any matches is going to be first place, which is going to be number 5. It's very clear. Won this match, you got a bye. Won that match, ends up as the winner, of course. Number 5. And then for second place, it's going to be the person who made it to the finals and then lost. So in other words, if you did not lose until you got to the finals, you're going to end up in second place. And that would be number 2. Number 2 gets second place. And then third place is the person who won the consolation bracket. So the winner of the consolation bracket is number 6. And if you were to do a fourth place, it would be the person that lost in the consolation finals, which would be this match. This match right here is called the consolation finals. And this match up here is called the championship finals, just so we're familiar with all the terminology. And fourth place, of course, would be the person that lost in the consolation finals, which would be number 1. And that concludes a 6-man double elimination bracket.
All right, this is lesson number 6 in bracketology for wrestling or grappling brackets that we have here. We're going to do a 7-man bracket, which is not quite as tough as a 6-man, but still does have 2 buys that you have to get through in order to finish the bracket fully. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. Let's go ahead and get the camera on the screen. All right, so like before, we're going to use numbers in place of names on our bracket just to keep everything nice and clean. So we're going to go ahead and start this off. We have number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And like we said before, any open spots on a bracket you're going to fill in with the word by. B-Y-E. All right, so now we have our bracket. All our competitors are ready to go, and we start calling matches. Number 2 and number 1 fight, and we'll say number 2 wins. Say number 3 wins. Go ahead and say number 5 wins, and then obviously the bye loses to number 7, and number 7 fills in that spot. All right, so here we had 7 competitors. 6 of them which fighted and or fought, and the losers are going to be dropped down to the consolation bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and drop those down. So number 1 lost to number 2, so he's going to go down in the first spot here. All right, number 4 lost to number 3, so he's going to be dropped down here. Number 6 lost to number 5. All right, and now we have a bye here as well in the first round, so we're going to go ahead and drop that bye down. So you can look at it however you want. You're either filling a spot or you're dropping down the bye into the next bracket. And this is when things get a little bit easier, because we're about to fill our brackets full and just run right through after this. All right, so we'll go back up to the championship bracket, and we'll go ahead and have 2 and 3 fight. Say number 3 here is going through Mr. 2. We'll have number 7 win as well. All right, and that'll be our finals for the championship bracket. We're going to go ahead and drop down the losers to the next round. So we have the loser of number 2 and 3. We're going to drop them down here. Okay, we're going to push number 6 through because he beat the bye. Now we fill that bracket. There's semifinals there. And then we're going to drop down number 5 as well. And we'll say number 1 beat number 4. So now we have our brackets full. All right, I always like to run everything to the finals before I actually do the championship finals, which is my preference. So we'll go ahead and do 2 and 6 fight. We'll say number 6 wins, 1 and 5 fights. We'll have number 1 win. So now we have the championship finals ready, the consolation bracket finals ready as well, and we'll go ahead and have these guys fight. Say number 6 wins that bracket. So number 6 is 3rd place, and the way he got there was by winning the consolation brackets. Then you have 3 and 7 are going to fight, and we'll have number 3 win that one. All right, so now we've finished our entire bracket. As you can see, the only buys we had were in the first rounds of each bracket. Okay, number 7 didn't have anyone to fight, so he was moved on. Number 6, after losing his first fight, got a bye to the second round of the consolation brackets. So we'll go ahead and show the winners. 1, 2, 3, first, second, third. All right, number 3 is the champion of the entire bracket. He gets a first place gold medal. Number 2 was the loser in the finals, number 7 was the second place. He lost in the finals match. Number 7, and then as you can see, 3rd place is number 6. And there you are. That's a 7-man double elimination bracket. All right, now this is lesson number 7. It will be our final lesson for bracketology. This is how to do an 8-man bracket, and luckily we'll be able to fill the entire bracket, so we won't have to have any buys in this bracket. This should be extremely simple, pretty straightforward. You're basically going to follow some brackets, like the one we have here, are lettered for each match, and really can just follow those. If you have a full bracket, you don't have to make any types of adjustments or anything of that sort. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen, and I'll go ahead and just run through this real quick. All right, so like in our other brackets, we're going to use numbers as the names of our competitors. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, number 6, 7, and 8. So that's our full bracket, nice, clean, no issues here. We won't have to make any types of adjustments. All right, so we'll run through this. We'll say the first match, number 2 wins. Say second match, number 4, we'll keep it even. We'll say 6 wins, and just to mix it up, we'll use number 7 as the winner of that match. All right, so now we have all of our winners. That's the semifinals. Now we're going to drop all the gentlemen who lost their matches down to the consolation bracket, so they get some more matches. So number 1, number 3, number 5, and number 8. So now we have the first round of the championship bracket is finished. The semifinals of the championship bracket is ready to rock, and we also have the first round of the consolation brackets. So let's go ahead and run the consolation brackets first. I always like to do that. So we'll say number 3 wins, and number 8 wins his match, his first consolation match. So both these guys here, if you can see, they've lost their very first match but won their second match. I know we didn't address this in any of the other videos, but it's pretty obvious. It's a double elimination bracket, which means if you lose twice, you're out. So for example, number 1, he lost his first match, was dropped into the consolation bracket, lost his second match, now he's gone. He's no longer grappling or wrestling or whatever type of competition you're running. It will no longer be included in the bracket. All right, so now let's go ahead and run the semifinals for the championship bracket. And we'll say number 4 will win, and we'll just keep number 7 out there. Okay, so now we have the loser of the semifinals are 2 and 6. Those guys both lost, so we'll drop them down. We have number 6 and number 2. And now we have the finals, which is ready to go, but we're going to go ahead and get the finals of the consolation bracket ready first. So we'll say number 3 gets passed along, and number 8 wins his match. So we have the consolation finals ready, and we have the championship finals ready as well. Go ahead and fight for third place first. We'll say Mr. Number 8 is the winner of the consolation bracket. So he lost his very first match, but he fought all the way back up to third place, so he'll be getting a medal. Now we're going to fight for first and second. 4 and 7 are going to fight. We'll say Mr. 4 pulls out the victory. So now we have first, second, and third. Number 4 is the first place winner of the bracket, seeing as he hasn't lost any matches. You can see he followed his way through the bracket there. You can find it all the way. And second place would be the loser of the championship finals, number 7. And third place is going to be the winner of consolation bracket. That's number 8. And like we said before, if you want to take it to a 4th place, you can see number 3 would be the 4th place winner, and those are all the place winners. So that is the 8-man double elimination bracket done in bracketology.